Welcome to the Business of Defense. I'm Rich Brady, your host and CEO at the Society of Defense Financial Management. SDFM proudly sponsors this podcast on Federal News Network. SDFM is the premier association of finance and accounting professionals who work in government and business in the defense sector. Our goal is to bring you inside the companies working to drive change in the defense sector, to hear directly from their business leaders, and to understand how they create value for their companies and their customers. Today, I'm talking with George Batsakis, CEO of Groundswell. Groundswell is leading the federal IT evolution and working to redefine federal IT across core business lines. Groundswell is purpose-built for this movement and moment, where commercial technology is accessible and the federal government urgently needs to modernize aging technologies. The team at Groundswell focuses on 4 key areas of modernization: ERP and business systems, legacy system modernization, workforce transformation, and process efficiency and automation. I'm looking forward to hearing about Groundswell's strategic approach, core technology partnerships, and their competitive advantage in the federal IT market. George, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So great having you here. Let's start, if we can. We always like to start with the origin. As I understand it, Groundswell is the result of the merger of 3 companies. Can you kind of take us back to that and talk through those mergers?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a point in time that we kind of saw that there was a need for top performing mid-tiers to enter into the market. But Groundswell took a different approach. We kind of had to throw the playbook away and look at what the gaps in the market were and how do we create a company that could fill those gaps. We're at a time period where technical debt in the application layer continues to grow. And there's also the accessibility of commercial technology that is now available through cloud delivered platforms at every impact level. But the gap was the business model of the government and the contractors available just weren't there in enough scale in order to deliver. So we built a company with a technology-focused thesis, filling those gaps around specific technology plays. And you mentioned them in your opening. Some of them were take a look at all the application layer debt that's in the ERP or business system space, and then throw low-code capabilities at them to modernize them. Second is, what are the top performing cloud-delivered commercial applications for the traditional ERP space, finance, HR, and supply chain? And how do we make them more accessible? There's a disintermediating effect that's happening today in today's market where the technology companies are generating demand in advance of the workforce being available with the right security clearances and domain expertise to do it. So Groundswell focuses on those things. Create the service offering, build products around commercial available capabilities, and then build the technology workforce in order to deliver it. And so far it's worked great. We're 3 years in. We did start with 3 acquisitions. We bought companies that had core expertise in low-code technology, HCM, and supply chain and finance. We integrated all 3 of them. And now we're in the business of going after large, full and open contracts to compete with the biggest firms in town.
So your M&A strategy was very targeted to certain companies that had a specific niche that you were looking for, is that right? That kind of built out, were you thinking the 4 core areas at the time, the ERP, the workforce, the legacy systems, or did it evolve?
Yeah, we kind of were. When you look at the market and where we are with federal technology in general, there's certain things that are always going to need to be done in a customized way. Command and control systems, satellite controls, anything that is tactical and battlefield related for the warfighter. But there are a lot of business systems out there and a lot of applications that we consume every day in a cloud delivered service that have an analogy or an allegory for federal government use. So we said, look, this is where a lot of debt exists, tons of legacy systems, hundreds in certain agencies that need to be consolidated and modernized. That mountain of debt continues to grow. The tool to fix those is probably not just a COTS implementation, but a commercially delivered capability from a cloud. And so that was our core thesis. So you look at the business systems and where are they? They fall into that ERP category of HR, finance, and supply chain. And so we went about hunting for the types of acquisitions that you'd need in order to start a company that was going to focus in this area. And we came across the first one. It was an SAP boutique. SAP is pervasive across the federal government, both in supply chain and finance. We found a great little company with core capabilities, but needed the scale to be able to modernize. So that was our first acquisition. A couple other acquisitions doubled down on full stack software development and custom development using low-code technologies. And then we bought another company that was actually called Groundswell Consulting Group. We liked their name so much we adopted it. And that gave us our expertise in low code. Later on, we joined the Workday ecosystem, and that's HR modernization, and the pieces have now come together with some additional tools around data and process automation and things like that.
Well, let's dig in a little bit, if we can, on this the legacy system side, because you mentioned there are a lot of legacy systems out there. So when you go into a federal office, one of your customer sites, and you see you've got all these legacy systems, how do you decide whether or not you want to, just modernize their legacy systems or completely replace it with an ERP system? What are the driving factors in that analysis or that determination?
Yeah, each agency's on their own journey, and some of them have a lot of legacy applications that need to be modernized because they have very specific, unique capabilities. We have an engagement with one of the financial regulatory agencies now, and they audit banks and do other things like that. Those applications were woefully old and difficult to use, and in those particular cases, modernization and building applications in a modern platform is what you needed to do. So that situation sort of dictated. In other situations, like in human capital management, we're using tons of legacy systems. They're not particularly easy to use. We have swivel chair HR experts that are integrating pay systems with personnel systems and retirement systems. And there's and oftentimes there's a commercial anecdote for that, that is a turnkey commercial SaaS. And so you really just got to meet with your clients, understand where their requirements are, and then pick the right modernization path that they need. We're always going to lend ourselves toward or lean toward those offerings that can be consumed as opposed to built. And I think that's the differentiation that Groundswell brings. I mean, gone are the days where you have to customize and build IT systems. If you can consume them, that's the better way to do it. Government keeps the data, it's their data. You deliver from a commercially secure cloud, but you buy it as a service. And that causes a lot of disruption because we're not buying labor services anymore. We're buying firm fixed price, consumption-based cloud delivered models. And so contracting has to evolve and change. So the perfect engagement for Groundswell is that client who's really looking to leapfrog where they are today, get on a modernization path that will allow them access to advanced technology, including automation and AI over time, but in a consumption-based delivery model. So there's a lot of trends here that were all kind of coming together at the same time that made our thesis work, and so far it's working out.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion in the defense financial management space about either having a single system, defense financial management system, or having multiple systems but common data fields across so that information can be shared. I mean, what are the pros and cons of both of those strategies? I mean, I think if you were going to build it from ground up, you would probably go with a single system, but we can't go back and recreate that.
Yeah.
So, how do we get to a happy medium maybe between the two?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and the agency-specific requirements are going to come in, but there are financial systems that run the largest corporations in the world that have similar size and complexity that the U.S. federal government uses. We kind of adopt a theory called, or a philosophy around this called true to core. If we can find a commercial application that can be consumed in a cloud-delivered services, software as a service model, we start with that. The challenges that we have with agencies is that they want to hold on to their custom business processes and rules that the agency has used over time in order to conduct their financial operations. In reality, there's a lot of commonality amongst all those things. The Navy system versus the Army system versus the Air Force, and even federal agencies that are large have the same kind of general ledger requirements for a financial system. So a single system might work, but there's always going to be a need for some amount of customization and some business process re-engineering so that they can use those tools out of the box, and that way they get a lot more efficient. We're seeing now going forward, probably the next generation of these financial systems are better suited for the federal mission if you can meld those business processes toward out-of-the-box capabilities that the software provides.
A lot of discussion in the field about auditability, and I think the new administration is talking a lot about it, continuing to pursue a clean audit opinion for the Department of Defense. Can you talk a little bit about how your systems support auditability? I mean, one piece of it is the financial management systems, but there's also the feeder systems, whether you're talking again the supply chain, the personnel, human resources, they all have to be audit compliant to ultimately achieve that objective.
Yeah, audit is the end state. I mean, we ought to know where our tax dollars are going, and the government ought to be able to be audit ready at any time. And the audit challenges that are facing the Department of Defense today are complicated. They have a lot to do with inventory and management of where those resources have gone. We look at this in waves, that the first thing that has to happen is, in order to get your house in order, it has to start with a clean budget. Like, what's our budget process? And so the agency in the Department of Defense has common rules, but different tools at every agency, and they're doing budget planning, programming, and execution systems differently. Actually, we built a budget tool and in Appian technology that we're fielding in a major defense agency now. And we think that's going to be the first step in organizing the budget process and making sure that all those approvals and you know where the dollars are going. Just recently in the news, we're hearing that the Department of Treasury had optional codes for where the money went when it was spent. Topical issue. Now, there's things in technology that can be added along the way in order to give better visibility and transparency so that the budget life cycle and the execution systems are melded together and even integrated with pay systems. So we're building grants tools that do this. We're building budget tools that do that. And then we also have a whole set of processes and tools that we're deploying with our partner UiPath that look at all the process discovery, process optimization, and then process automation. Take the human out of the loop and make sure that all those systems are automated. Those are early implementations, but if you start with a process layer and then bring in easier to use tools that have the governance and policy infrastructure in them, we think you're off to a good start. The actual general ledger component of the financial system are pretty common in all agencies, and there's big systems that are there. They're tough to modernize, and they need to be modernized because they're an older technology that doesn't take advantage of automations and future AI, but we're well on our way. And we frankly think this is the right discussion for right now. 10 years ago, the technology may not have been available to really rip through this quickly, but now it is available. Commercial technology is there. We just need government agencies to hatch their plan on how they're going to be audit ready all the time and then rebuild those systems in that vision.
Yeah, I definitely want to come back to the automation opportunities in the next segment, particularly with all the discussion of government downsizing. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. Before we wrap this segment up though, so when you walk into a federal agency, what's your 30-second pitch?
Groundswell pitch has to do with about bringing next generation technology to the table. And I started off by saying that we thought there was a gap in the market with top performing mid-tiers. Large contractors that have been around for a long time, and frankly, some of the greatest companies in the country and in the world are still selling consultative capabilities in a labor-based model. We're looking for our clients to shift and move to a consumption-based model and take advantage of those commercial technologies in modern delivery platforms. The truth of the matter is, the large companies recruit off the same planet we do. There's a small number of people that are available with the right security clearances and the domain experience, and they're going to go where the work is. And you don't need to have a huge company. I like to say the logo isn't going to save you. The program team that shows up needs to have the right skill set with the right understanding of how to apply the technology. And sometimes a top performing mid-tier with the built-in agility to turn on a dime is your better partner than a large contractor that you've had for 30 years. And if you've done what you've always do, then you're going to get what you've always gotten. And I think in this era, it's time for a change. And there are companies like ours that are fully qualified to do this work and might be able to move faster and invest on their behalf.
You are listening to The Business of Defense with my guest, George Batsakis, CEO of Groundswell. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Business of Defense, sponsored by the Society of Defense Financial Management on Federal News Network. As a market leader in 4 core technology segments, Groundswell operates in the foundation of people plus IP plus experience, a formula that drives innovation and delivers meaningful results for federal agencies. But for Groundswell, these aren't just buzzwords. Under George's leadership, the company is making a real impact, leveraging decades of experience in some of the largest defense business sectors to bring excellence, quality, and transformation to the industry. George, let's go back to your background on this. I believe you've been in the industry about 25 years, an Army veteran as well. How did you get into federal IT from the commercial side?
Yeah, it's an interesting story, but it started out with a company that spent 7 years in large systems and weapon systems, actually, and components, and was a program manager and worked my way up through different operational groups, and later joined EDS, which was a legendary company a bunch of years ago when things were just getting started in IT. From there, I went to Northrop Grumman and ran a branch of tactical systems, and the light bulb started to flicker about what this market was doing and where the changes were. From there, I went to a company called SRA, which was a great company and I stayed there for 12 years and ended up running their national security business. From there, we were acquired and merger mania was happening and a lot of things changed, and the company was eventually acquired and merged, became CSRA and then became GDIT. And at that point, again, the light bulb really flickering about how maybe we could be doing some things differently. I later went to a large consultant organization, ran their national security sector. And at that point, I felt like I had built enough scar tissue and made enough mistakes where it was time to venture out on my own and build the company that we're running today called Groundswell. But all this was sort of a building of my own personal experiences, but also the technology curve that was moving faster than anything, of really opening up this window where we're at this point in time where commercial technology now needs to be adopted at scale in the federal government to really make a difference.
Now, working with all those companies, also you got to see a lot of different corporate cultures and styles. What did you take away from that, and what type of corporate culture are you looking to develop at Groundswell?
Yeah, I think that with the change happening so fast in technology, if you're going to run a technology company, you have to build in agility. And so we run a very flat organization. We're trying to foster a culture where the best idea wins, no matter where it comes from. And it rarely comes from the top. It usually comes from the folks that are working on projects and really understand the customer's experience and what they really need. And so we stay flat, and we're very much agile in both our processes and governance, but also the way we run our leadership team and bring people into the program.
Now, working your way up again through all those different companies, you probably got a lot of great advice from mentors. Is there anything that you would share that was really pertinent to running a company today?
Yeah, I think that the big lesson for me was that, and it's unique to your listenership and viewership here, is that the federal acquisition processes and how things actually get done in our market is so unique to what's here. And there's so many tricks of the trade and just contract vehicles and ways to navigate how to get it. Getting the technology solution matched up with the requirement is oftentimes the more difficult challenge than just identifying what the right technology fix is. And so having the domain understanding and really understand the government's mission was absolutely critical. So as we grow as technologists and learn about the next technology and are fascinated and energized by the advancements in AI and other things, we're still having to operate within a construct that gets that technology in the hands of users that support our citizenry and soldiers and airmen around the world.
Yeah, no, I hear that often, that we've got all this great technology that's operating in the commercial sector and working very well, and we're having a hard time bridging the gap, getting it into the federal sector. And a lot of times it does come down to the acquisition process. There's a lot of change going on in government right now too, and I think they're going to be taking a look at those acquisition rules. But in your mind, what would be most helpful in that area? I mean, does there need to be a simplification of the acquisition process overall?
Yeah.
How do you balance that with the protests on the other side, and making sure there's fair and open competition?
Sure. Yeah, the federal acquisition regulation exists for very good reason for large, complex systems, but it isn't well suited for acquiring commercial-based, cloud-delivered, next-generation technology for business systems.
Right.
And so oftentimes, there's a gap there. There have been efforts with SIBRs and OTAs and things to run those, but still, I think there's still challenges in it. More importantly, the way contracts are written, smart contracts need to be implemented, more firm fixed-price contracts as opposed to cost-plus development, particularly in this area where you're buying commercial technology and you plan to consume it in a commercial-type model. Those contracts are written in ways where you're performance-based and service-level driven and outcome-based, as opposed to how many labor hours delivered a certain chunk of a new system in a build. So that evolution is happening, and I expect that through this evaluation of the acquisition reform that's going to happen once again, that they'll find ways to get access to those technologies. That the contract mechanisms are there. There's commercial aspects even in the FAR that allow for commercial software purchases, and we'll see more and more of that.
Yeah, we're also going through this period right now of downsizing in government, and I think many of us have seen this, in the mid-90s. There was kind of a similar period. At the end of the day, the work still needs to get done. So how are you approaching that from from a kind of a risk perspective and an opportunity perspective? Obviously, there might be some risks there, but are there opportunities in the commercial sector with some of this downside? Because in my view, the work still needs to get done, right?
Yeah.
And so whether you have contractors do it or you automate it, there seems to be, again, an opportunity for commercial companies.
Yeah, there's a bunch of ways this could happen. It's not the first time it's happened. You're right. In the 90s, and then there was 9/11, which was a huge shift of funds from one agency to the other and creation of whole new agencies. And sequestration also put some top-down budget pressure on all of it. When that happens, there was industry consolidation, and the government was forced to get more efficient with their contractors. There's no doubt there's going to be winners and losers in this. And we like to think about the business model as being where the winners are going to end up. If you're selling large consultative contracts to bring people through a strategy and building the next generation systems in a labor-based model, those are going to be hard to justify. They're plagued with cost overruns. They take too long, and we think consumption-based delivery models that from a cloud is the way to go. And who are the companies that can deliver results sooner and more efficiently? So there's going to be a parsing of how things go. I think it's probably positive net overall because it's going to drive people to advanced technology, and the technology does give opportunities for automation. Now the government runs, still customer number one. If we went back to 2017 funding levels, there'd still be a ton of budget available that's out there. So the bubble might burst a little bit, but we still think there's a ton of work that's out there for those firms that can stay agile and that can drive next generation technology adoption.
Yeah, there's also a lot of money being poured into AI, both on the commercial side and on the government side. Are you being asked by federal customers to lean into AI technology, or is it still within your areas kind of a wait and see? Let's let some of this develop before we go in.
Yeah, when we talk about AI, it's such a broad category of things, but let's just talk about it in terms of automation. The technology is there for us to implement automation across the board, and leaning towards an AI future where machines are going to operate somewhat autonomously or with governance models around them is where it's happening. And every single customer wants to know what's around the corner so they can drive better efficiency. I remember that those government domain experts that are there are going to be there, and they're always going to need to be there because there's unique systems on how the government operates. There isn't oftentimes a commercial allegory to it. So everyone we've talked to is looking for how do we improve our processes, how do we make it more user-friendly, and how do we apply automation so that we can take those laborious paper-driven tasks or those tasks that are in legacy systems that are just hard to use and costly to maintain and eliminate those. So the path towards modernization is going to come through automation and increased use of agentic capabilities on top of applications so that the jobs get easier. The training effect is better. And with an aging workforce that's going to be leaving through retirement age over the next 10 years, if you look at the demographics, we have to bring in a next generation of folks, and they're going to want to use the next generation technology and automation to get their job done.
So as we wrap things up, where do you see Groundswell in 5 years? Still in those four key core business areas, expanding out?
I think there's so much market here.
Right.
And what we decided to do, unlike a lot of our competitors or people that we see out there, all great companies, we're not technology agnostic. What we decided to do is pick a few technology capabilities and go deep in them, try to become number one or number two in that technology. So our areas with SAP for supply chain, our areas for Workday for HCM modernization. In finance, it's a combination of applications and automations and custom builds through a low-code platform. And we use Appian technology for that. What we're looking for is what's our next OEM that we're going to partner with so that we can capitalize on their demand generation, build the workforce to deliver the capabilities, and kind of cut the line and bring the technology to bear. That model's not going to change. What we probably will do is add more technology OEM partnerships in cloud, in AI, and in automation in order to make sure that we remain on the cutting edge.
I look forward to seeing it and hearing all about it the next time we have you on.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank today's guest, George Batsakis, CEO of Groundswell, for sharing his insights in the evolving landscape of federal tech modernization and growing demand for auditability and efficiency, and how he and his team are making a real impact in the competitive world of government contracting. Visit sdfm.org to learn more about our Defense Financial Management community and consider pursuing the Certified Defense Financial Management certification to distinguish yourself in the field of defense financial management. This year, we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the CDFM certification program and honoring all the professionals whose dedication and expertise have made it the gold standard in defense financial management today. Watch The Business of Defense next month, where we bridge the gap between the boardroom and the battlefield to advance the mission of national security. I'm Rich Brady, CEO of the Society of Defense Financial Management. You are listening to the Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search SDFM. Thank you.